Hey folks, Dave here, and welcome back to my Fallout 4 Let's Build project here at a new settlement location at Thicket Excavations. This was unlocked thanks to a mod, and I've got some big plans for this settlement. This is going to be the location of a massive Minutemen-run prison camp. This is where survivors of the Institute or the Brotherhood of Steel are going to be put, along with raiders and gunners and various undesirables, if you will. They're going to be put into this gigantic quarry where they mine raw resources as well as construct prefabs for my other settlements. I decided that that's going to be part of the lore here, is we're going to be funneling in raw materials for the prisoners to work on and then using cranes to pull out, rooftops and wall sections. The idea being that in my personal RangerDave Fallout 4 lore, when I'm building it at a different settlement, you guys are going to be able to say, these roof pieces are coming from the quarry at Thicket Excavations. This is a pretty ambitious build, even for me, and we're going to have to be careful not to absolutely wreck our frame rate trying to get all of the ideas that I have and you guys have into the build, because there were some awesome ideas last week, but we're going to try to take this just one piece at a time, basically. On this second episode of the Let's Build series, I want to work on kind of the centerpiece for the build. One of my favorite ideas that you guys were posting was adding lots of spotlights to kind of help light up the quarry and really make it look like some kind of futuristic, apocalyptic, prison camp, even from a distance. So today, I'm going to make a hanging lighting platform over the center of the quarry. It'll be supported by a bunch of cranes, and it'll have some crazy walkways. It'll basically be a way to get light all the way down to the very bottom of the prison, which is probably where the most dangerous prisoners might be residing. To work on this, with all of the lighting effects with the spotlights that I want to add, we're going to have to go into the creation kit and do some modding. So most of this episode is going to be in the creation kit, but as you guys saw there at the start, I'm going to give you guys a preview at the end of how things look in-game, and I'm actually really happy with how this is looking. So let's go ahead and get building here in the creation kit on our light superstructure, if you will. So what I'm doing here is creating a base platform for this crane, because you guys also pointed out that as far as transporting the large blocks of stone up, the elevator just makes a lot more sense. So I'm going to have a second secure guard facility over here, which will be used for bringing up large blocks of granite from the mine. Something else, though, that this mine is going to be in charge of, and I'm really excited for this idea, is I'm going to have the prisoners who are living here in the lower areas of the pits. They're going to be in charge of making all of the prefabs that I use in my settlement. So every time that I place a, pre-constructed wooden wall or a tin rooftop for a shack in a future build, you guys will be able to see, oh yeah, this is where the poor workers are having to make it. So I've got a couple of ideas for some cranes that are going to be used to drag those prefabs up from the depths. We're going to have some conveyor belts and a whole lot of cool stuff, but first I want to figure out where these cranes can go. I'm imagining some kind of rope bridge almost. Let's do a save, because that is pretty safe in the creation kit at least. So I'm thinking some kind of floating platform in the center here with cables from all of these towers that are holding it up, and we're going to hang some gigantic spotlights off of those. Let's see where the elevation ends up if we drag this over this way. Okay, I'm going to raise this block up and pull it out some. And it looks like there's a slight gap, like a chisel chunk. Well, that's not a slight gap, that's a big chisel chunk knocked out of this brick. So I'm going to kind of fill it in here. Paste in place. Just keep that nice and simple for now. Let's just put it down here. I think it'll be cool if I can make the wires look good. The cables, I guess. To have all of these support towers for the walkway at different elevations like this. So we got those two over there. Do a save. Those two over there. Now, I know you guys weren't a fan of my capsule tower from last time, for the most part. I still kind of like the design, but I agree that it doesn't really fit in well where I had it, so I've removed it. So let's instead look at possibly doing a capsule for what is suspended over the quarry here. And then from there, we could have all kinds of cool tightrope style walkways going back and forth. First though, let's hang this thing so that it looks cool. And then we could put our spotlights hanging off of that. It just really makes sense to me, at least, that you'd have a prefab capsule like this suspended. Next up, I'm going to show you guys how we're going to make the ropes that are connecting this capsule to our towers that we placed earlier. First thing we want to do is make sure that our capsule is centered where we want it. I think I might have gone a little bit too far over this direction. Let's just try it in the center. Did a search for spline endpoint marker, or just spline under static objects. Let's turn on markers with M. Okay. And we're going to take the endpoint marker. And let's put it where we want the spline to end on this. Okay. Once we have our first marker basically where we want it, I'm going to hit Control D to make a second one. Leave that marker behind. Let's go up here to our tower. And I'm going to put it right here on the top spool. That actually snapped quite nicely. Let's go ahead and get both of these selected. I'm going to hit P to connect the 2 points. I'm going to choose metal cable spline 1. Nice thick cable. I'm probably going to leave it that thick actually. And this is the weird key. Control Shift S and drag. Nope. Control Alt S and drag. There we go. That's the slack. Control Alt S. So we can slacken that off some, just to make it look like it's hanging. And now you guys can kind of see where this is going. Let's rotate our capsule a little bit because it's just too squared off right now with the rest of the quarry. This will make it feel a little more natural. Let's put a spline endpoint down. Let's also save before I forget. Oh, that's looking awesome. What poor soul is in charge of that facility is the question. It's also going to be very interesting to get a catwalk up to it. That snapped pretty nicely there again. And there is our suspended capsule. Looks a little bit off, so this might need some adjustment. But overall, I like it here, guys. So let's do this next. I want to find a spotlight. Don't know what that's from. Turn off markers again. And let's see. Spotlight swivel. Spotlight on. Those are the small ones, most likely. Diamond Stadium light is what I was looking for. Because I think we can do a squared off version of this, guys. That would look kind of cool. Let me show you guys what I mean here. Okay, is that light on? Let me not delete it just yet. Scale it down some. Okay, yeah, that one's on. And there should be a Diamond City lighting effect that we can make use of too from these lights. But they're not going to be that big. That's ridiculous looking. We're just going to get it lined up. There'll be like a big construction light, or maybe a small baseball field light, not Diamond City sized baseball lights. And I'll mount them here across the bottom. I think I'll put a greeble of some kind, which is just like a big industrial thingamajig on the bottom of the capsule to help control the lights. Oop. Don't know what I just copied there. Let's paste that one again. To cover up that gap underneath here, let's look at some industrial greebles. Yep, that's the kind of stuff we're looking for. This one right here, I think, is perfect. Just to hide that gap between the light bases. These guys better hope that those cables are really, really strong. Next up, guys, it's time to work on the lighting, and I'm going to take a break here because I need to dig through the creation kit and do a bit of research. I'm going to head over to Diamond City and look at how Bethesda set up the lighting for their giant stadium spotlights for Diamond City. I do that whenever I need to get some inspiration on the technical side of things to figure out, which lights they used and how they set up the lighting, stuff like that. So stand by, I'll be back and let's see what I can find out. Okay, well, I found some good sources. It turns out that most of the Diamond City lighting is actually pretty subtle. A lot of the big stadium lights actually don't cast any light at all. They're just a slight camera lens effect when you look at them. Most of the lighting in Diamond City is actually just little small point lights, so it's basically just faked. I want more intense lighting for here at the quarry, so I'm working on figuring out a couple of different ways to do it outside of what Bethesda did for Diamond City. It just wasn't the example I was hoping for. The good news is I've had a couple of ideas for the bridge section, so next up I'm going to work on that and get a bridge that connects almost rope bridge style over to the center of our lighting device here. From here on out, I'm not going to have live commentary. I'm just going to walk you guys through what I worked on. I just saved occasional shadow play clips because this took a little bit more trial and error, and it was just taking way too long to just record a straight through process of what I was working on. So again, this is basically just my post-game commentary, if you will. I used the same steel style cables to get two supports with just a little bit of hanging in those support cables just to give them a slight bit of droop, and then I connected them over to the edge of the quarry where I built a small platform, which is the jumping off point for the bridge. Once we had an idea of how things were going to end, I went through all of the different wooden plank options and decided on using this nice big section of I think it's the, what is it? The shack bridge without the railings, just because it's going to save me a lot of time to use these bigger pieces to make our rope bridge that goes out to the center here. The key is going to be, as you guys can see, rotating each one of these wooden plank pieces to match exactly the slope of the cabling to make it look good. I don't want it to be straight across. It has to have that slight bit of droop to it. Additionally, I'm resizing some of these pier anchor pieces with the ropes on them to act as the anchor pieces for the different cables for the rope bridge. It's not a perfect solution, but it looks pretty good, I think. The rope bridge really helped to ground this floating light platform, but after looking at it, I was like, I'd be really worried about this whole thing just rotating and ripping the bridge to pieces. So next up, I added some very taut anchor lines to each side of the superstructure of this capsule in the center of space here. This is just to give it a more solid look so that you wouldn't be expecting it to just be rotating itself to pieces. At this point, the design is really starting to come together and look pretty convincing for a design that I'm essentially putting together just on the fly, using bits and pieces of the Pridwin, of Diamond City, and of the shack models. There's lots of different pieces going on here, but I think they are all starting to come together. To really help sell that rope bridge feel though, I am using these bits of, I guess it's like a railing support from the Pridwin, and I'm going to have one more single cable as a handhold that goes all the way across to the center of the floating capsule. The only downside to this is these cables have no actual collision, so in game, if I forget that these are just visual cables and try to, lean up against one or walk into one, I'm just going to clip right through it and fall off the edge. So it's going to look cool, but it won't actually be useful for keeping you from falling off the edge. Trying to match that slight bit of droopiness on the base of the walkway with the railing piece as well. For now, I just added 3 or 4 of these railing supports along the way, but it looks a little bit barren, so I might go back and add a few more later on. And you guys know me, I've got to go in and tilt these baseboards just a tiny bit so that as you're looking down the bridge, it's got a slight bit of ricketiness to it. Just adds that little bit of extra immersion, if you ask me. Speaking of extra immersion, it's time for Joel's second most hated part of my designs, outside of the time that I spend on designing bathrooms. I'm going to put a whole bunch of planks down across the bridge to again just break up the repetition and make it look more lived in and realistic. Whenever possible, I'm going to try and use as many different designs of wooden plank in different colors and shapes to keep things from having any kind of real repetition at all as you look down it. Next up, I decided that I wanted more lights than just the 2 gigantic Diamond City spotlights, so I'm going to go through here and add a total of 4 spotlights to the corners of our capsule to really just take the lighting to the next level and make it just ridiculous with the amount of spotlights that I want going down into the quarry itself. Next up, while I'm here in the creation kit, I'm going to go ahead and decorate a few things into the capsule itself. I just pulled some references from some of the other capsules that are already here, some filing cabinets and desks and food and stuff like that. I can add more detailing in game, but I figured, hey, I'm here, might as well get some of those details down now. As you guys can see, even with just the preview lighting here in the creation kit, this is really starting to look convincing, and like it was a difficult thing to construct, but it's something that I think looks like could have been built with enough, manpower and effort. Again, while we're at it, let's go ahead and get some lighting set up for the inside of the capsule. Just a simple warm colored omnilight and a hanging light design for it. I also want to put a console control tower in here because you want to have all kinds of controls for the spotlights and the stadium lights, and probably lights all over the entire settlement from this central location. Almost like an extra security command center with extra control over the lights. Thinking about what kind of chairs should go in here, I went with the airplane chairs just because I figured they could be maybe weighted down on the runners at the bottom, and you could strap yourself in just in case the wind picked up and this whole thing started, vibrating or rocking a little bit. You'd be strapped into your chair, especially with the end doors open like this. Finally, for the sake of immersion, I added some red wire cabling coming from the actual power source for the settlement, which is a couple of power lines right at the main entrance. And I ran the power all the way out to a power terminal on the roof of the console, because I figured, especially with the amount of lights that are out there, plus the control console, you would definitely have to have a ton of electricity going out to power this thing. So having a visible cable just made a lot of sense. Next up, it's finally time to get that lighting dialed in, and this is where I was really excited to find a couple of things that I had in the back of my mind were actually possible. The main one being, there is actually a visible volumetric cone of light that you can place in the creation kit. It's from the Prydwen, and you can actually even scale it up and down and make the beam wider. Oh man, guys, I was so excited to find this. Look at this. By rescaling it, I can make this huge beam of light coming off of the Diamond City lights right down into the quarry. It just looks awesome. Even again here with just the preview lighting and all of the markers turned on here in the creation kit. Once I figured that out, it was just a matter of getting the correct angles and sizes for all the spotlights and getting all of the individual lights lined up with the smaller spotlights, which took maybe 10 minutes or so. It wasn't too bad. It's pretty easy when you're working with a visible cone of light to figure out where you want it to hit. Very dramatic lighting so far, and yeah, like I said, guys, I was getting pretty pumped here. What that left was I wanted to actually have these spotlights casting some real light, because these Prydwen cones of light don't actually cast any in-game light at all. They're just a fake visible lighting effect, essentially. So if you look at the walls of this initial version, the spotlights have a really cool looking beam, but then there's nothing on the walls where those beams are hitting. To fix that, I went in and manually placed some omnolights for effect. I did this at the bottom of each one of the spotlights, and then I actually found some nice, real big omnolights to put down at the very bottom of the quarry itself that lights up the entire area at the base of the beam. So we're going to have this really cool dramatic lighting down there at the bottom. Well, that was plenty of work for, actually it wasn't one day or one night, I worked on this over a couple of days. Let's go ahead and dive in-game and take a look before we end this Let's Build episode. And here we are in-game, and as you guys can see, that is just as dramatic looking as I was hoping at night. That is awesome. Let's look at it from the watchtower. Oh yeah. I think that was well worth all the effort, because again, this is kind of going to be the centerpiece of the build. I also have this stadium light up here, which you'll be able to see from the distance. I might put a beam coming out from that as well. Maybe a couple of crossed searchlights so that you can see the camp in the distance. But this is exactly the kind of lighting that I was hoping for my futuristic, apocalyptic prison camp. Let's see how the bridge works. Yep, you can clip right through the railing, so don't expect it to stop you from falling. Oh, that's so cool. Look how lit up the bottom is. Those ambient omnolights really helps down there. Well guys, I don't have a whole lot more to say. This is exactly what I was hoping for, and again, I think it was worth the effort. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'm gonna have some more micro detailing at the end of the build in here probably. I even added this little railing to seal the door up. I'm trying to figure out what I'm gonna work on next. It might actually be maybe some of the upper tiers of prisoner areas, where the upper class prisoners are allowed to stay. I imagine the truly horrible ones will be down at the very bottom. Let me run back here. Yeah, this is just too cool. Let's look at it from above. Go to free cam there. There's my power line coming in. And that is how the lighting looks. Oh man, guys, I am super excited to keep working on this build. Let me know which section you want to see me work on next, and keep those ideas coming. I think I've already picked probably 5 or 6 of the ideas from the last comment section and added them to the design document. For now, that's going to be it. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys next time.